There is a special, do you want to explain the special about melanin and how it protects the cell, the DNA inside the nucleus? That's very important.
Part of the reason you can't do these experiments, where there's a lot of melanin around, the melanin actually in a lot of people, in black people, it's actually spread out through the skin. It spreads out through the cells and covers everything from the actions of the ultraviolet light.
There's no doubt in people with higher melanin, natural higher melanin, that it's far more likely that that melanin will be coating the nucleus, the cell wall of the nucleus of the DNA. Now the point about that is that ultraviolet light, which is often used to splice DNA, is blocked by that melanin. It absorbs it. It doesn't allow it in to interfere with the DNA. And it could well be, and this is Nigel's thesis, that this was a blocker for them when they were trying to genetically alter the species. And therefore, when maybe just out of random mutation something like an albino came along, they discovered, wow, we can get straight in.
Right.
And it may well be that the paler-skinned nation, people on the Earth, have that pale skin because of this genetic experimentation to make things easier for them to work on human DNA. And in fact, Professor Steve Jones argues that this thing about vitamin D being, paler skin being there to allow vitamin D to be absorbed and so on, all these theories about why pale skin happened in the first place, he believes it's not an adequate explanation. There is no real explanation or justification for the need for pale skin at all.
Yeah, because I think if
dark skin is always an advantage in every circumstance.
Right. Because most people would just automatically assume, well, they went to live in the north where there's less sun, so therefore their skin changed colour. But that's not the case.
According to Professor Steve Jones, an eminent professor of biology, that is absolute nonsense.
Right, okay.
There's just no reason at all for pale skin.
You would want to absorb more light, and, why did we lose hair if we came to a colder climate, etc.?
Yeah.
So obviously something's wrong with that idea.
Right. All right, and Nigel contends that the white races, the northern European races, have probably had the most interference from this outside entity called the grey alien.
Yeah, and he doesn't say that. It's very important to say he doesn't say that from the point of view of a kind of reverse racism.
Right.
It's just he's letting us know that, right, that's there, you may need to do something about it, and maybe suggesting ways that we could do something about it. And if you look at the record of the European nations throughout history, in terms of colonialism, imperialism, and what the havoc they've wreaked on the world, it makes the point
that
really.
It's the blue-eyed white races that have got their finger on the nuclear... well, I mean, what about China? Because he mentions the Chinese as well, doesn't he? He says that they've had significant intervention. Am I right there?
That's right. Yes, there's been interception all across the board. They found ways of doing it, but the most efficient way to do it is on cell nucleuses that aren't protected by the melanin shield.
Family, y'all have got to see this. There's nothing new under the sun. Here we go again. Check this out. Check this out, family. You cannot be questioning the validity of this. You can tell this is real. Look at how he's moving his feet, his hands. This is very real. And this is what happens when they splice animal DNA with human DNA. Poor child. Many months ago, I did a video talking about cryptids and chimeras. These beings exist. Now, why do they exist is what we should be asking. And the reason why they exist is for many different reasons. Let's talk about it. My thoughts are for them not to like us, they're borderline obsessed with us and our connection to source that they don't have. That's why they try to make sure they do everything to eliminate that connection. Think about this, family. We see a lot of videos where you see these cows being abducted on farms and they're taken up on these ships. Could they be doing this splicing on those ships? Could they also be doing them in these subterranean military bases that are far underground, where we know that they have a lot of these laboratories and they do experiments? Many have also stated that this splicing of human DNA with animals is to create super soldiers. Did they see something in the looking glass in the future where they saw that when we get activated completely, that we take back our power? Maybe they're afraid, and so they're creating this other race in these subterranean bases to go up against us in the future, because they already know when we coming back, we coming to whoop ass. Think about how many humans abductees there are. There's a lot of abductions. In fact, there was a video recently that surfaced with this woman that was sleeping in bed next to her husband, and then all of a sudden you see this extraterrestrial on camera, and then she disappears. Do you know the husband was being held accountable for her disappearance until they saw the video camera of this being? Check it out. Check it out, y'all. This video was posted by someone called Down the Rabbit Hole here on Instagram. But you can see this being, this entity in the closet. You can see the eyes glowing. It's real creepy. In the closet, just looking, just waiting for the opportunity. Then look, it zaps over, and then boom, she's gone. And then it was a blood stain on her pillow. She was never ever seen again after this abduction, y'all. These things really, truly happen. Either way, family, it's nothing new under the sun. This dates back to ancient Kemet and even back in the days of Atlantis, where they were actually these negative beings, these negative entities came, as they always do, to try to conquer and take over. And they were creating these hybrid beings, even back then. And even more recent, in the early 1950s, Eisenhower made an agreement with the negative grays to be able to abduct a certain amount of the human population. It's crazy, y'all. Again, they're so obsessed with our DNA, our molecular structure, and how we work. They have not been able to fully identify everything about us because we're so different in so many ways in our connection to source. This is also why they have utilized us for farming purposes, okay? They also feed off of loosh. Loosh is a form of energy that is released from fear, from anger, from rage, from all low vibrational emotions that humans encompass. Knowledge is power, and the more knowledgeable and aware that we are, and our pineals are completely decalcified, then that is what they fear the most.
I sat and talked with a geneticist, and we were sitting there, and she's Caucasian, and she's been a geneticist for over 30 years. And one thing she told me is that when African Americans get a DNA test done, their DNA markers do not match African DNA markers. They're different. She said, and I said, well, how is that possible? Because I know on my DNA test, it categorizes. It'll say something like 50% Nigerian, 10% Ghanaian, stuff like that. And she said, well, they have to categorize you. They have to put you in areas where your DNA is closely related, but it's not the same. And she said, so when you get your results, it just clearly shows the majority of your DNA come from Africa, and it's inaccurate. She said, do not believe those DNA tests. She said, don't believe them. They're not accurate. She said, you guys, she said, I've been a geneticist for over 30 years, and every last African American that I did a DNA test on, their DNA markers do not match African markers. She said, every last one of them. And I said, so what are you saying? She said, you didn't come from Africa, whether you believe it or not. She said, you didn't come from Africa. She said, you guys are the indigenous people of this land. They've been lying to you guys. And lying. She said, your DNA proves that. And I said, but we look like them. She said, let me give you an example. She said, Asian people, she said, everyone, it's been proven that we all came out of Africa. That's true. She said, Asian people left Africa and migrated to other areas, and their DNA changed from Africans. She said, the Europeans, everybody started in Africa. When they left Africa, migrated over to Europe, and their DNA changed. She said, the reason why they categorizing you as African because you guys look more like Africans than any other race of people on this earth, but you're not African. She said, your DNA proves that you are not from there. She said, yeah, your ancestors came from there, just like everybody, every race of people's ancestors came from there. She said, but once you came over to this land, somehow your DNA changed. It's not the same.